It's Monday, and you know what that means. Jersey First TV proudly brings to you the latest edition of Real Talk. And yes, I am New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist. Top Latino is voted on by the Latino Spirit online magazine, along with the United States Latino Affairs Initiative. And certainly, ladies and gentlemen, I will continue to be the weapon of mass disruption in Garden State media, because now more than ever, folks, listen, in this era of journalistic deception, I'm that guy that'll be the people's choice and the people's voice, folks. That's right. It's me, Fernando Uribe, the most handsome face that runs the place here, saying happy Monday to you all, of course, as we continue with the month of September. Folks, I don't know about you, but I love this little crisp weather, kind of wearing a hoodie at night, not overly hot days. I can avoid having to put on the AC. I can kind of, sleep with the window open a little bit, feel that nice autumn breeze. I don't know about you guys. I'm really, really loving fall. Folks, hope you had a good weekend. And of course, thank you for tuning in from wherever and however you may be doing so right now on Facebook Live via StreamYard. Of course, folks, we really appreciate all of you tuning in on all of our social media platforms. Of course, if you don't do it right now, what are you waiting for? Make sure you like us on Facebook. Of course, Real Talk with Fernando Uribe, along with Jersey First TV. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And of course, on YouTube. I'm sure you're subscribing to YouTube for something, whether you're listening to podcasts like this one, whether you're listening to pro wrestling, sports, politics, whatever it is. You're always on YouTube for something. Click the subscribe button, like, comment, and share, and let everyone know how much you enjoy Real Talk via Jersey First TV. And of course, whether you get your podcasts on Spotify or SoundCloud, download Jersey First, download our channel, and you'll be automatically notified of all the great content brought to you by Jersey First TV. And speaking of excellent content, folks, I can't say enough what a privilege it is to be on the dream team of Garden State Media. That's right, folks. It is Jersey First TV, of course, educating and advocating for the great residents here in New Jersey. Folks, brand new episodes of The Nader Narrative premiere every Thursday, hosted by the incredible Elizabeth Nader, and brand new episodes of Bridging the Gap, hosted by AJ Malillo and Steven Rimbolo, also premiere on Thursdays, and of course, every Monday night live. We don't take days off, folks. We don't take the summers off like other journalists do. Well, propagandists do in New Jersey media. We're working every week here, folks. It's, again, it's real traffic because it's Real Talk. And of course, every Monday night, check your local listings. Of course, you'll see brand new episodes of Real Talk with Fernando Uribe via Jersey First TV. Folks, you want to stick around for final thoughts? I'm going to have a lot to say, of course. Over the weekend, I was privileged enough to go to the First Congregational Church in Montclair for a memorial service to honor the GOAT of journalism in this great state, folks. Michael Aaron was laid to rest there. Great memorial service, a lot of great speakers, his daughters, certainly other luminaries in attendance. It was great to just be there and pay my respects to who I so wholeheartedly admire and respect. And his passing earlier a few weeks ago really hit me hard, folks, because he's a guy that, let me tell you something about Michael Aaron, from being invited to his show, Reporters Roundtable, and just even being in the same studio as him, even just talking to him, you felt the warmth and the sincerity of Michael Aaron, and he genuinely wanted you to succeed. And I remember just the kind words he had for me when I got to visit the NJ Spotlight Studios in the Gateway Center in Newark and be a part of Reporters Roundtable that was hosted by the late, great Michael Aaron. I'll share some thoughts about the memorial service and why Michael Aaron still means so much to me, arguably the greatest journalist that's ever lived here in the state of New Jersey. And of course, folks, we go from the greatest journalist of all time to perhaps one of the worst journalists of all time. And that's right, folks. It's Tommy Boy, Tom Moran. And I'm going to let you know about his latest column and what atrocity it is. And folks, let's be honest. I mean, when it comes to atrocious journalism, you know what? It's easy to think of Tom Moran because that's all he publishes with NJ.com and the Star Ledger. So more on that during Final Thoughts, folks. So you definitely want to stick around for that. And of course, hey, you know what? In case you missed it, I do want to thank everybody for a wonderful August. 67,000 organic views here on Real Talk with Fernando Uribe via Jersey First TV, of course, on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram. Folks, I thank all of you for the great traffic, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later during Final Thoughts, a jam-packed Final Thoughts. You definitely want to stick around for that as well. Folks, one of the things I enjoy about this job, right, and it's not even really a job because I enjoy what I do with Jersey First TV, is talking to elected officials, not just federal ones, statewide elected officials, but it's just as important to talk to municipal elected officials because at the end of the day, listen, I've said this to my students all throughout my years in academia, all politics really is local. And we get a really good sense of how government works by just sort of studying municipal government. And I'm someone, again, as a history buff, as a political scientist, as an academic, and as a journalist, I really enjoy talking to municipal officials because at the end of the day, folks, it's how we see our towns are being run. Obviously, town councils, commissioners, everything that really helps really, make New Jersey go in our municipalities. And folks, I got to tell you, one of the municipalities that stands out for me is the great township of Middletown, New Jersey. It's quite south of me. Wonderful township, all the way south of me down on the Garden State Parkway. And folks, when we talk about great mayors, listen, I'm very spoiled here where I live in Union City because my mayor is also my state senator, Brian Stack, and he works hard all the time. I mean, whether it's get out the vote, whether it's constituent services, whether it's just being transparent to his residents and to taxpayers in his municipality, folks. I would argue nobody does it better than Brian Stack. But I got to tell you, a mayor that's coming in a very close second and a mayor that is as transparent as it comes. And I got to tell you, you think I'm a good dresser? Folks, this guy blows me away. He is the distinguished mayor of Middletown, New Jersey, folks. He's the Honorable Tony Perry, joins us live here on Real Talk. Mayor, how are you?
I'm great, Fernando. How are you today?
I'm great. And folks, again, if you haven't done so already, please go to middletownnj.org for the great services provided by the Township of Middletown, south of me. Now, is that Monmouth County or Ocean County there, Mayor?
We're Monmouth County, exit 114 and 109 on the Parkway. We're the top of the Jersey Shore. Sandy Hook starts it all, and that's Middletown, New Jersey.
All right, folks. Again, if you need somewhere to go in, forget about that summer's over, folks. You can still have great dining, great places to visit in Middletown. Again, middletownnj.org. Check it out for the township website. Mayor, good to see you. How was your summer?
My summer was great. Good to see you as well. I can't believe summer, the Memorial Day to Labor Day summer is over, but certainly local summer is still alive and well here in Monmouth County and on the Jersey Shore. So, it's beautiful weather, as you said at the top of the show, and I hope everybody comes out and still continues to support our great businesses all throughout Monmouth County and the Jersey Shore.
Mayor, I got to tell you, I love the autumn season. Listen, as you know, obviously you can see it behind me, and my audience knows I'm a diehard Dallas Cowboys fan. I love that the NFL is back. I just love the weather. It's football season. Halloween's my favorite holiday. Apple picking, pumpkin picking. There's so much to do in the fall. But of course, for local residents, right, in Monmouth County, it's a sort of different local time of year, right?
It is. And I got to give you credit for having that Dallas Cowboys, fanhood right behind you there. I'm curious your thoughts on the Dak Prescott contract. But I know you're the journalist and I'm the politician, so I don't get to ask the questions. But
Mayor, listen, we're friends here. Mayor, we're friends on this show, and I just got to tell you, I was deeply disappointed. I'm not a big fan of Dakota. I think his ceiling is just beating the Giants, the Eagles, and Redskins. That's it. When it comes to a big game in January, he just comes up. Listen, he folds quicker than the Star Ledger when it comes to reporting the facts. You know what I'm saying? So it's really disappointing. Again, I'll take the win. Defense looks good. It's week 1. No real injuries yet, but it's a long season. And we'll talk a little bit NFL a little bit later in the show. I really want to pick your brain, Mayor, about what you think about this upcoming season. But Mayor, I got to tell you, man, I've been following your work. Obviously, great constituent services you have in the township of Middletown. Certainly what you're doing with the police department, fire, emergency. It's really a great structure that you have in Middletown. And of course, it's easy to take credit being the mayor, but I know you have a great council working with you. And I think also, obviously, you have great employees at Town Hall. So take us through really sort of, the day-to-day grind for Mayor Tony Perry.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. A lot of the credit goes to my staff who do an incredible job. From every office in Town Hall, we just have great leaders and great people so dedicated to not just our residents, but our businesses and to everybody who wants to come and become a part of the Middletown community. So to have such dedicated employees, to have a committee that is beyond dedicated to our town, small business owners, lifelong residents, to see them all come together and really in a part-time job go out each and every day and ensure that we are continuing to promote the message of why Middletown's a great place to live. You see it in the leadership and in the accomplishments that we've been able to achieve over these past 6 years in particular. And when you see all that we've done, everybody always asks me at the end of the year, what's in store for next year? And, sometimes you sit there and you think, and you're like, well, we're going to beat it, whatever it is. And you have to compete against yourself in reality, to work hard and to be the best you can for the residents. And, I'm very fortunate to have such dedicated employees, such dedicated committee each and every day. And then that support level that you see from the county commissioners that we have, our legislative leaders, it's a give and take on every single day, especially when you're fighting the fight on so many fronts, whether it's an issue that you're being confronted from the state or national politics. But you mentioned at the top, all politics is local. Yeah. And when I go into ShopRite or I go into a store in town and I see residents, I often will lose my family and I will eventually catch up to them. But it's because somebody has stopped me. And I never get mad or angry that occurs, because I'm the one that put my name on the ballot. And that's what it takes to be an effective leader. And I think that our results have shown time and time again that what we're doing here in Middletown of being not only fiscally responsible, but the greatest transparency that you're going to see really anywhere in the state of New Jersey when it comes to local elected officials. So we're out there every single day. There's not a day that goes by that we're not out in front of the public.
Understood, folks. If you're just joining us live right now, it's 6:11 here on the East Coast. My guest tonight is the Honorable Mayor of Middletown, New Jersey, Tony Perry. Folks, it takes just 2 seconds. Like, comment, and share. I know everyone that loves the show. I appreciate you loving. Even the haters that tune in, you're still watching. So, I mean, obviously, who's the bigger fool, right? As they say. And we appreciate you tuning in here live on Real Talk. Mayor, one of the biggest issues I think that I hear from other municipal officials that I talk to on this program is sort of like the struggles about property taxes. Obviously, the Emperor, Phil Murphy, obviously, one of the biggest distinctions he has is that New Jersey leads the country with the highest property taxes in the nation at about an average of over $9,300, according to the last reports by NJ.com. For a mayor like yourself, and obviously Middletown is a big piece of real estate. Obviously, we all know in all 21 counties, mayors, county commissioners, county executives face different issues. When it comes to Middletown, what has been the struggle, if any, about trying to keep property taxes to a level where, again, we're seeing a massive migration of people out of New Jersey to more affordable states like North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Texas, collectively. What sort of, measures have you taken within your capacity as mayor, along with the council, to keep Middletown affordable?
Well, it's perfect timing, because just yesterday I was having lunch with some of the crew of the USS New Jersey, which is the newest Virginia-class submarine that's about to be commissioned right here in Middletown on Saturday. And I was talking to a young man who was at the lunch I was at, and he said, well, I'm a New Jersey, rather, born and bred. And I said, oh. And so we got to talking as to where. And I said, so is he still there? And he said, no, but my parents are still there. And I said, well, where do you live? And he says, well, the great thing about being in the Navy is that I can go and pick and choose a state that I want to reside in. And he resides in the state of Pennsylvania. So literally our bordering state, he chooses to go because he knows he's not going to get crushed when it comes to income taxes and property taxes and things of that nature. So it's amazing, because obviously these submariners are spending months on end, on secret missions. They're underwater. They're patrolling the seas around the world. And he chooses a state just right next to us and makes that his home rather than his home state of New Jersey. So property taxes in New Jersey this is not a new issue, and this is not going to be the last conversation that happens about it. But what we have really focused on in Middletown is, number one, streamlining services. You have to look at everything through the lens of the taxpayer. And one of those, obviously, in Middletown, 65% of the people's tax bill goes to your Board of Education. And in New Jersey, it's absolutely mind-boggling that we have more school districts in the state of New Jersey than we do municipalities. And rather than working to consolidate districts that make sense to consolidate services, Atlantic Highlands and Highlands, two smaller towns than Middletown in Monmouth County here on the Bay Shore, have been working to consolidate their school district for the better part of 20 years. Very soon, that is happening. But the amazing part is that it took 20 plus years to get something like that done. And so in Middletown, we've ensured that it's always an open dialogue with our Board of Education, ensuring that we are not duplicating efforts, because our school board does not need to do the same thing that the town does. It's just, it doesn't make any sense. So when the municipal bill is only about 23%, your school board bill is about 65%, you know that there's going to be overlap in a lot of resources that both of us are going to need. So that's number one. So our Board of Education and the township meet on a monthly basis to ensure that we're not duplicating those efforts. And the other part of it is educating the public, because the number one thing that people have this disbelief about is that 100% of your bill goes to the municipality, and it doesn't. Right. Our budget in Middletown is about $100 million. Our school budget is over $200 million.
Wow.
So when you look at that, we have 16 public schools in Middletown. And so it's a big district, almost 9,000 students in the town. So when you look at that, you have to be able to educate your public as to where is this money going. And for much of the bill that happens in Middletown, at least, is public safety is always number one, ensuring that my police have the resources that they need, ensuring that my fire department has the proper resources that they need and tools to execute their jobs. And so our number one, aside from health coverage, obviously, is our police department. And that's a sacrifice that every resident is obviously going to be willing to pay for. But so we have to protect that. But there are small, simple measures that the state of New Jersey can take when it comes to healthcare reform, when it comes to pension obligations, and so on, that really would make New Jersey way more affordable. We have passed the buck from the state and the ballooning property tax and budget that the state of New Jersey has proposed. I mean, when Chris Christie left office, I think we were at a 40 some odd billion dollar budget, and now you're more than $60 billion in 8 years. And when you look at that, is any New Jersey resident sitting there saying that they have more today than they did 8 years ago? Are they receiving any services? Are their schools receiving any more funding for upgrades? Are we seeing more resources for our emergency first responders? Is your quality of life better today than it was 8 years ago? I don't think many people in New Jersey are going to be saying yes to that answer. And unfortunately, the state of New Jersey has found a little loophole. And that is, we're going to implement all these different changes, and we're going to create these different programs, and we're going to have the municipalities be responsible for collecting the money and paying for those programs. And to me, to my township committee, and I know to most of Monmouth County, they're not all that thrilled about these constant unfunded mandates that come down. I'll tell you one quick one. The DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection, recently came out with new regs that involved trees and the removal of trees. And here in Middletown, we're fighting against this high density housing that Phil Murphy and the Democratic legislature enacted that will overdevelop and destroy our beautiful environment, our beautiful undeveloped pieces of land here in Middletown and across the rest of the state of New Jersey. But they came up with these new regs that allowed municipalities, that required municipalities, I should say, to implement new rules on tree removal. And all that goes into that is that someone from town hall now has to walk to your property, decide whether or not you can or can't take a tree down because it's sick, because it's in the way of something. So now you're paying a new fee. You're now, instead of being able to call a tree company and take a tree down, you now have to wait for someone from town hall in whatever town you live in to come out and inspect a tree. At what point do we say, is New Jersey acting in the most effective capacity by having someone come out and decide whether a tree should come down or not, whether it can come down? To me, there are way more important things that need to be addressed before we start looking as to whether or not Mr. and Mrs. Smith next door to you should be taking down a tree whose branches have now completely fallen off and the tree is dead. Do we really need a bureaucrat to say yes or no? In Tony Perry's world, that answer is no. I guess the legislature disagrees with me and the Department of Environmental Protection. But let's bring back some real leadership to the state of New Jersey, and because it's lacking today.
And listen, we'll definitely talk about that. Definitely want to pick your brain about 2025. I've heard your name being floated out there. More on that later. But you raised some great points, Mayor, especially when we talk about it is September. It is back to school. Obviously, boards of education are sort of getting back into the swing of things. Obviously, teachers are back, administrators. But, one thing that, the name Tony Perry, it doesn't take very much, folks, to just Google Tony Perry and Phil Murphy. And the Google search results are going to give you some interesting reading. And one of the things, Mayor, that I have been adamant on this program about, I'm really the only journalist in New Jersey media that's been talking about this. But I, again, as a conservative, a common sense conservative, I'm always very concerned about the leadership in Trenton. And what I mean by that is, Governor Phil Murphy, at one point, obviously, State Senate President Steve Sweeney and Craig Coughlin have been responsible for a lot of really just draconian measures when it comes to New Jersey. Never mind COVID. I mean, I could go out 3 shows about how bad they handle COVID. But what we're seeing, though, now, especially with our education system, it seems like the governor and, now State Senate President Nick Scutari and Assembly Speaker Craig Coughlin seem to be coddling and acquiescing to illegals at a frightening rate, coddling and acquiescing to the alphabet mob in Trenton. And that's a big issue because I know that towns like Middletown and others have really been adamant and almost defiant when it comes to Phil Murphy and his lapdog. The Attorney General, Matt Platkin, when it comes to curriculum that parents have a right to be concerned about, okay? And it's not like right-wing hysteria. It's not bigots or homophobes or transphobes. It's none of that. It's parents groups, parents' rights groups, and parents themselves that when they go to Board of Ed meetings and they voice objections about content that's being available to their children. Listen, I don't have any kids that I know of, but I can tell you with my godson, I am livid if he's exposed to curriculum, and he's much older now, but again, at an age when he was in kindergarten, moving forward, I would object to what's being proposed and has been already signed into law and what's being implemented, Mayor. Again, it doesn't make me a homophobe or a transphobe. It just makes me want to say, let kids be kids. But it seems like the far left in Trenton and all these activist groups, right, that are all about, being champions for the LGBT community. I'm sorry. I think the priorities are misplaced, Mayor. I mean, where am I wrong here?
Well, I would say this. Certainly, you're absolutely right. Middletown has taken a proactive approach. Our Board of Education has certainly, and I've been there to voice my support for those actions, has taken the approach that when did we sway so far away from the basics of education? Because right now, for so long, New Jersey was thought of as a great place for an education. Our schools are great, and that's why our property taxes are so high. But when you really look at the statistics, even the Department of Education's own statistics on the readiness and preparedness and skill level of our students, you see them falling horribly behind when it comes to reading, writing, math. And when you start seeing that happen, you have to stop the backslapping convention of, hey, our schools are so great. And there's the majority of teachers out there are great teachers, and they want to come to work and they want to do the right thing. However, there is a contingent that is more focused, I think, on identity politics than it is on reading and writing. And I think that we need to start voicing our concerns when we see something wrong that's happening out there. More importantly, at what point did we decide that we didn't want parents' involvement? When I was a kid, My parents were involved in my education. They were involved in our classroom. All parents were. And so now we've decided, because there's been vocal outrage about the curriculum that some schools have implemented and the state of New Jersey has signed into law, we want to say we're not worried about, or we're not interested really in what the parent has to say. Uh, I'm always going to be interested. I mean, imagine if I held a meeting and I said, "Well, you're talking against me, and you're opposed to what I'm saying, so I'm not really interested in your opinion." My duty as an elected official is to hear out every resident, whether I believe them or whether I agree with them. Those are two different things. I'm always going to believe a resident. Whether I agree with them is a different story. And my simple perspective is this: we want parents involved in every decision. We want our educators to be able to provide our parents and our students with honest and good feedback. So let's allow them, let's embrace what they have to say, and let's ensure that their voices are heard and that they feel heard in that. When you pass bills at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Trenton, when everyone else is working and nobody is able to provide input on that, I can understand why people feel upset about that. And that's why you've seen so many school boards go out and be able to voice that opposition to some of this curriculum, because it is concerning. And there's no one out there that's willing to say, from whether it be the governor's office or from the legislative side, well, this is where I think you're confused, or this is where I think we need further explanation. And because I guess they just feel self-entitled to the fact that we're Trenton and we sit underneath this big gold dome and we can do whatever we want. And that's just not that's not how democracy works. It's not how our republic works. And that's why I've been so vocally opposed to the actions taken by Trenton, and why I support our Board of Education in the decisions that they've made to ensure the proper education, and where a focus on all the on civics, on history, on math and reading are all critical components and the main components to ensure the success of our students.
Mayor, for our audience that maybe that isn't aware about how punitive the governor, the DOE, or even the Attorney General has been to Middletown, give us a perspective, again, for maybe someone that's not familiar with Monmouth County, with your township, about how the governor has acted and really how the Attorney General has been towards you and your township, and of course, specifically the Board of Education in Middletown.
Yeah, well, our Board of Ed is currently locked by the Attorney General's office. One of the few municipalities that is locked into being unable to rescind a notification policy for parents when it comes to a student's desire to change his or her name or gender on official documents that a parent signed, stating that they were giving all true and accurate information. And this policy that magically, after the Middletown lawsuit occurred, magically became optional for many for all the school districts across the state of New Jersey. And unfortunately, and for some unexplained reason, the Attorney General is unwilling to free the township from being able to rescind this policy that every other school district has been told is optional and that they're able to rescind. So you have locked, I believe it's 3 districts, into being unable to rescind this policy, yet there are districts all across the state that have done so without repercussion. So this is one of those moments where you see that petty part of the politics play out, and where we really need true leaders, proven leaders in Trenton to free us from this this game that's being played with our students, with our teachers, and certainly with parents alike.
Now, Mayor, and folks, if you're just joining us right now, it's 6:29 here on the East Coast. And you know what? It takes 2 seconds. Like, comment, and share. The live views are looking great right now, as always. Again, our guest tonight is the Honorable Mayor of Middletown, New Jersey, folks. He's the great Tony Perry, here live on Real Talk. Of course, check out all the great resources available to Middletown residents, folks. If you're looking to move there, maybe have your kids start in the wonderful school district there, again, check it out at middletownnj.org. Now, May, you talk about leadership, and God knows we definitely need that in Trenton in the governor's office, obviously. Thankfully, the emperor is term limited, so he will be done later in December of 2025. And, there's been a lot of chatter about who should succeed him. And obviously, there's a lot of whispers among the Democrat Party candidates right now. Obviously, a lot of mayors are running for the Democrat Party for that gubernatorial primary. There's some names out there in the Republican Party. Obviously, we have former state assemblyman and two-time candidate Jack Ciattarelli, certainly currently state senator John Bramnick, and 101.5 FM radio personality Bill Spadia. I keep hearing these whispers somewhere. I keep hearing it in my ear, and I get texts or emails about, hey, there are some really strong mayors down the shore, and some mayors that, are strong conservatives and Republicans, and should they enter the race in 2025 in the primary, they might throw a wrench in what's going to happen for the Republican Party in 2025. I keep hearing this name. Oh, that's right. His name is Tony Perry, the mayor of Middletown. Keep hearing this whispers, Mayor. Anything you want to share with me tonight, or maybe dispel some rumors here?
Well, I can say this. My name is on the ballot this year in Middletown, and I'm running for another 3-year term here. But I don't have any intention in 2025 to run for the governor's seat. I think this is a critical election for New Jersey. I think it's a very, very important election. And, while I'm flattered by some people encouraging me to run, my focus is on Middletown. It's to ensure that we develop and a proven record that not only here in Middletown, but take these policy measures across the state of New Jersey. And I can do that as the mayor of Middletown. We're the 16th largest municipality in the state of New Jersey, almost 70,000 residents, and one of the largest all Republican controlled township committees in New Jersey. And my goal is to take the message and the policies that we've implemented here in ensuring good, responsible government all across the state of New Jersey. I've been able to develop a lot of great friends throughout the state, and I want to continue working with them. And we have a great candidate for governor in Jack Ciattarelli, and he's proven that he knows how to get out there and be at more events than I think anyone else. But we'll let that primary process play out, and but you're not going to see Tony Perry's name on that primary ballot.
Okay, well, it's official there. He said it on the record, so certainly, we're going to go with that. But Mayor, to be fair, obviously from conservative to conservative, I got to tell you, I'm really concerned. I think about where Republicans are heading in New Jersey. In case in point, obviously, you're on the ballot this November. Certainly, we know that there's a big presidential election, right? There's a Senate seat up for grabs. All the congressional districts, House seats are up for grabs. And, I'm going to plant the flag, and I'll die on this hill. I'm not just basing it on what happened in Wildwood in late May. I made the travel down there. I was there on the beach in the press corps area. I saw literally more than 50,000 people on that beach. Sure. I think, the former president, certainly in a time where we have record inflation, New Jerseyans are struggling to either decide to pay rent, pay their car insurance, pay for groceries, maybe pay for private school tuition, whatever the case may be. Obviously, we're seeing the disaster of the Biden-Harris administration. Mm-hmm. Having said that, I think the president has to overperform in New Jersey. I do see this as a single-digit race. I would love, and for all you history buffs out there, the last time New Jersey went red in a presidential election year was 1988 with George H.W. Bush. But some people keep telling me, though, Mayor, that the 14 electoral votes that have been solidly blue for almost 30 years is in no danger this year. I'd like to think not. I'd like to think that the former president could win New Jersey. But again, what disappoints me about Republicans is that they don't get out to vote. They're either fickle, they're never Trumpers, they're anti this, anti that. At the end of the day, we're seeing the disaster of Kamala Harris, right? This notion that, I'm going to fix what's wrong on day one. Hello? I thought there was nothing wrong for the last 1,361 days. So What exactly are you fixing, sweetheart, that you feel that now there's a problem? And I just think it's this and listen, and we know in New Jersey, Mayor, that there was vote blue, no matter who, people that will just vote down the line and vote Democrat, even against their own best interest. And we see that in New Jersey. Do you think the former president has a chance to steal the 14 electoral votes here?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, I think that the race is going to be much closer, right? Donald Trump was closer in 2020 than he was in 2016. And I think now with all the things that you mentioned when it comes to inflation, and you look at your credit card bills, you look at your bank account, you look at your quality of life. And even the vice president, Kamala Harris, went out and said that food is more expensive than it was 4 years ago. And she was campaigning for herself, and which is a pretty mind-boggling campaign tactic that I'm not sure many campaign managers were too thrilled about. But when you see that, and you see the reluctance of certain, moderate Democrats, Tester in Montana, you look at those Senate candidates that are out there, congressional candidates that are out there that are distancing themselves because, earlier this year I went to Israel and traveled with a legislative delegation to Tel Aviv and to Jerusalem to meet with families. And it was a very eye-opening experience for me. I had never been to Israel before, and it was heartbreaking, but I'm so grateful to have gone. And when you saw the tactic and the decision that she made in what was probably the most important decision that she was going to make after her announcement and I guess endorsement from President Biden, was her selection of her vice president. And rather than, tamping down the concerns of some in the Democratic Party that were concerned with this anti-Israel rhetoric and hate that you see in some of their caucuses, she went and doubled down on this progressive mentality that I think are going to deter a lot of unaffiliated voters and those John F. Kennedy, even Bill Clinton-esque blue dog Democrats that you're going to see across the country. So can former President Trump keep it close? I think he can. I think he's going to keep it closer in New Jersey than he was in 2020 and obviously in 2016. But it's not all about win or lose, because there are down ballot candidates, including myself, that are fortunate to have a presidential race at the top of the ticket. And that helps drive voter turnout. And when we were just talking about deterring people and stopping people from coming into school board elections, we want people to come out. Jack Ciattarelli gets some of those Republicans that left their vote by mail ballot on their kitchen counter to return them. We may be talking about a Governor Ciattarelli rather than Governor Phil Murphy. So we have to get out and vote. The Republicans have to get out and vote. The options are out there in terms of early voting and VBM. And if you don't like putting it through the mail, drop it off at one of those drop stations throughout your county. Because when we don't vote and when Republicans refuse to get out there and don't coalesce to the extent that the Democratic Party does, we lose. And that's what we've tried to prevent here in Middletown, obviously successfully for so many years, is not only are we running on our proven leadership and our records, but we're getting out there and going into the places and finding out why people aren't voting, those low propensity Republican voters, and get them to vote, because this election is critical I have 3 children, and, from 4 down. And when I sit there and I say at our annual reorganization meetings and when I'm all throughout town, I say my goal as not only a parent but as a mayor is to provide my kids and your kids with a better life than we had. That starts and stops in part with the town and the community that you raise your children in and that are going to be molded by your community. So we need to ensure that they're seeing an America that even, we saw, our previous generation saw, and that's one of American exceptionalism, one where we believe in America. I'm so tired of hearing the rhetoric about how bad America is. America has raised countries all across the world out of Nazism and fascism. We've risen people out of poverty because of the efforts of the United States of America. And when you hear how horrible America is from those on the left that wish to make it out to be this villain, I get concerned for America. But I know that at the end of the day, America will be successful because we'll be able to elect leaders that run on that belief that America is the great country that it has always been. We just need the leaders there to be able to promote that message.
Well said, Mayor. Folks, it's 6:41 here on the East Coast. If you just joined us live, it takes 2 seconds. Like, comment, and share, and let everyone know how much you enjoy Real Talk with my guest tonight. He is the Honorable Mayor of Middletown, New Jersey. Folks, again, check out all the great resources in the township of Middletown by going to middletownnj.org. He's Tony Perry. Join us here live on Real Talk. Mayor, we obviously talked about the federal election, obviously. Now, when it comes to your local election, maybe for my viewers that aren't familiar with sort of Middletown politics, do you have a Democrat opponent? What really distinguishes you from your opponent as we're about 57 days away, on election day?
Yeah, well, I do have an opponent, obviously, I don't fault anybody for putting their name up against mine. I think that makes for a better election and a better campaign. And there was just an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal yesterday, I believe, talking about how so many local races go unmatched from the incumbent to the incumbents. Yeah. And so I do have an opponent, and I haven't heard what his positions are on any matter, but I'm going to continue to push the positions and the record that I have. Number one, first and foremost, the preserving of our open space in Middletown. What we have done in terms of the fight against high density housing, better referred to as quote unquote affordable housing, which is not affordable. It only costs taxpayers more, the municipality more, and in the end, the residents that you're putting in that very home more. We have a lack of leadership in Trenton on this, and we have fought this because what most people don't know is when Trenton talks about affordable housing, they'll say, "Oh, well, Middletown, you need to build 1,500 units." Well, that in a town 42 square miles with 70,000 people, even 1,500 units is a lot. But what they don't tell you is that for every one affordable unit that they build, they have to build 4 market rate units. So when you hear these numbers, you have to multiply them by 4. And there's no incentive because it has become so political and politicized, this process, that even when I was talking to the Senate majority's office about the recent affordable housing bill that went through, I said, I just don't know how anyone can sit there and say that they are for this bill, but they're pro-environment. Those things are you cannot be pro for both of them. And for me, I'm working every single day to preserve the remaining open space that we have in Middletown. That's what my residents want, and that's what I want for my kids. We have over 6,000 acres of preserved open space in this town. We're working every single day, even to pick up those small lots of 5 acres, 10 acres, to ensure that quality of life continues. And my opponent's slogan on his sign is "For smart growth." Well, I don't know what that means because he's never said one way or the other. But what I think that means is, well, Phil Murphy told me that this is a good bill because he signed it into law and the Democratic legislature passed it. So it must be good. Well, my message to Middletown voters and Middletown residents is this. You have seen my record in fighting against this high density housing. You have seen what we've done in terms of the investment in our open space, in our parks. That is the direction I want to continue in. And obviously my opponent doesn't want to do that because he's never really defined whether he's for or against that. The other thing is protecting and serving our community, our police officers, the pride and professionalism that our police officers have. When my opponent is advocating for certain groups that are spewing hate against our police, Middletown is ranked one of the top best places to live in New Jersey by Travel and Leisure magazine. And that's in part because we have a great police department led by a great chief in Craig Weber. who has day in and day out served the public to ensure that his hometown is a safe place to live. I just a few years ago filed a lawsuit against the state with the mandate council, the unfunded mandate council, saying that the state has created this cash bail system and they need to pay for it, because just the other day, another attempted carjacking occurred in Rumson. Now, if you've ever been to Rumson, it's a beautiful town. It's a great town. I'm not the mayor of Rumson, obviously, but it's a wonderful town, and it's a nice one. Very, very well-off, wealthy town. And someone attempted to carjack this vehicle. And what was found out later? That person had been released from jail just a few days prior in Bergen County. And that's because we do not have a system that protects our residents. And as elected officials, our duty first and foremost is the safety and security of our residents. And when public officials are purposely denying that as their job and not providing our police at whatever level the resources that they need, you are failing as an elected official. So we sued the state of New Jersey. Surprisingly, a board that gets to make these decisions, made up by appointments by the governor, the Senate president, and the Speaker of the General Assembly. I lost that sham of a hearing that I never got to appear in front of. But it's time that we get back to the basics, just like for our education and just like for towns across New Jersey. We need to start working and moving in a direction where fiscal responsibility, public safety, and the preservation of our quality of life is first and foremost on every person's mind, and not all these fringe agenda items that some put forth.
Bravo, Mayor, with that, because again, I'm one of those, maybe the only journalist that really talks about law and order and quality of life on this show. I mean, it seems like, well, when everyone's all up in hysteria about shootings, and listen, I get it. Nobody likes to see school shootings in the news. I get all that. But again, and I love to educate my audience, and I have a very smart audience, but sometimes people need a refresher. And before getting into academia and journalism, I worked in our criminal justice system, and I've seen data. I've seen the uniform crime reports. I've seen what the state police produces in terms of numbers. And here are the facts. Whether it's whether it's dumps like the south side of Jersey City, Patterson, New Brunswick, Trenton, Camden, Lake City, Elizabeth, wherever, the bottom line is that the majority, if not almost 90% of all gun violence is committed with handguns. Yes. Do we see rifles being used in mass shootings? And again, and just for everyone at home, mass shootings, according to the FBI definition, all that requires is 4 or more participants being injured as a result of gun violence. So, I mean, it could be something that happens at a cafe. The bottom line is the majority of gun violence in New Jersey, in Chicago, in Philadelphia, wherever, is committed with handguns, illegal handguns, by the way, okay, because it's not responsible gun owners that are committing these crimes. And of course, you know, when Phil Murphy and Matt Plotkin walk around with armed guards and security, that's great. But what's good for me isn't good for thee. And that's why, number one, you're seeing a skyrocketing amount of applications by New Jersey residents that are applying for firearm permits. And number two, you're seeing a skyrocketing amount of people with home security. Why? Because at the end of the day, people have to take it upon themselves to protect themselves. I mean, again, I'm all for law enforcement. I'm a staunch advocate for the police. I've been very adamant about that on this show. When everybody on the left in Trenton and all these activists, Mayor, about defund the police, these are the same idiots that wouldn't even walk next door to tell their neighbors to turn down the music without calling 911. So let's stop it there. But what bothers me, though, is this notion that, you know, Phil Murphy and Matt Plotkin and really the leadership, again, at one point, Senate President Steve Sweeney, and then obviously now Nick Scutari as well as Craig Coughlin, think that, well, you know, we need to make gun control a priority in New Jersey. If we have stricter gun laws, people are not going to commit gun crimes. And my answer to them, whenever I've run into them, I'm like, oh, have you been to Patterson? Have you been to Passaic? Have you been to New Brunswick? I mean, folks, again, it's not like responsible legal gun owners are committing crimes, Mayor.
Well, and unfortunately, when you look at the major cities and you look at New York, you look at Philadelphia, the criminal activity that's occurring on those streets is not often as reported. And you know, my heart goes out anytime these tragedies occur. In fact, in Middletown, right after the Uvalde shooting that took place in Texas, I got on the phone with our Board of Education president, and it was just a few weeks before the school year ended. And I said, Frank, let's get these police officers in the classrooms. And for the rest of that year, we had armed police officers in every single one of our 16 public schools. And in just 2 short months after that occurred, over the summertime, we were able to come to an agreement that placed a Class 3 police officer in every single one of our schools. And now we're on just started year number 3 with an armed police officer in our schools. So there are things, and the ironic part of this is the Board of Ed president that I had previously, a few years earlier, given the suggestion to, came back to me and said, well, I like it, but I don't want them to carry a weapon. And I said, so what is the point in having a police officer in the schools if their job is to protect the students? We have to give them the tools to protect them. And it never came to fruition. So my Board of Education, the Township Committee came together and was able to put an armed police officer in every single one of our schools. And now, starting this year, we have an armed police officer in every single one of our private and parochial schools. So we've really taken this head on, where other districts can come out there and call for more gun control and things of that nature. And, you know, that obviously, you know, that's their belief. But my belief is, why not put a police officer in the schools to ensure the safety and security of those students? It's the student's job to learn, and it's the teacher's job to teach. Let's leave security to police officers that are there to ensure they're able to do that very thing. And, you know, it's worked out great. They've all become part of the fabric of our communities in each of our schools. Our students love them. Our teachers love them. And we're going to continue to do those common sense tactics to ensure that our kids are safe, our teachers are safe, and that we're doing the things that are simple to ensure that.
Mayor, obviously, one of the responsibilities you have is working with state legislators, obviously, within, I'm not sure what district Middletown falls into when it comes to the legislative districts, but what's the nature of the relationship now and the rapport you have with your local legislators? Because at the end of the day, for example, in Middletown, you mentioned, I think you have 16 schools, right? Is that correct? 16?
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously, if you're looking to get more funding from Trenton to obviously build more schools as a population is growing in Middletown, perhaps, what's the nature of your rapport right now with your legislators? Again, for my audience that maybe isn't familiar, who are the legislators that represent Middletown and Trenton?
Yeah, so Declan O'Scanlan's our senator, and so we're the 13th legislative district. And fortunately, I was the chief of staff to Senator Joe Krillos before he retired from the legislature, and I did that for 4 years. And Joe taught me a lot about the inner workings of the legislature, how to get things done. And so our relationship with our legislative delegation is obviously top tier. We are the largest town in the district, in the 13th legislative district. So we're working constantly with our legislature, and but it doesn't stop there either. I am talking to legislators all up and down the state constantly, advocating for the positions that Middletown and Middletown's residents have on certain issues, like that affordable housing bill, on the rain tax that was passed a few years back. When it comes to these different topics, it's imperative for Middletown to have a seat at the table. And that's what I've tried to bring to every year that I've served as the mayor, is to ensure that not only am I being a voice when it comes to local issues, but also be a voice at the state level of what is impacting municipalities up and down the state of New Jersey. So, you know, we have a lot of work to do. We are represented by a all Republican legislative district. So we have to work across the aisle, and there's hard conversations that I have to have with some of these Democratic elected officials. But they certain ones will take my call, certain ones won't. But we'll certainly always be vocalizing our position on the things that are important to Middletown's residents.
Folks, it's 6:55 here on the East Coast, and we're about to wrap up shortly here, just about the top of the hour, approaching soon. Here with my guest tonight, folks, like, comment, and share. It takes 2 seconds. Show your support for Real Talk here. He is the Honorable Mayor of Middletown, New Jersey, Tony Perry. Join us live here on Real Talk. Mayor, before I let you go, a little bit about, listen, we've gotten to know the Honorable Mayor of Middletown, gotten to know the elected official. Let's get to know Tony Perry, the guy. So a little bit of a lightning round here. And let's get to know Tony Perry here for my audience right now, live on Jersey First TV. So let's start with some basic stuff. Sports, MLB, who's your team?
So MLB, I get a little bit of flack for here in Middletown, but my MLB team is who I believe is about to be the World Series champions, Philadelphia Phillies. That is my team. So I did get one person that commented once on one of my posts that he was retracting his vote from the 2021 election after he found that out. But my team's the Phillies.
Phillies look tough. They look really tough. I mean, they're clicking on all cylinders, and we'll see what happens in October, obviously, right? As the competition, the pitching gets tougher, right? We'll see in the National League. NFL.
NFL's a strange one. So my dad is a diehard Seattle Seahawks fan. Don't ask me why. It goes back to the Joey Galloway days of the Seattle Seahawks. So I grew up loving Seattle and those throwback uniforms that they just wore yesterday. So on that one, I'm a real oddball in the Seattle Seahawks are my team.
I mean, your dad probably goes back to the Steve Largent days, right? I mean,
I think he still has a Steve Largent jersey in his closet. I can see it as you say that, but definitely.
Yeah, listen, even Dave Craig, right? I mean, these are some names out of the past, as they say, with the Seattle Seahawks. I got to tell you, though, man, I mean, the classical AFC jerseys, I can dig that color and the helmet, but ever since when they left the AFC and went to the NFC, some of those home jerseys are brutal, though, Mayor. I mean, my God, those colors are
the green ones that they use on like Thursday Night Football. I can't even watch. I'll just get updates on my phone. It's terrible.
I mean, it looks like a bad sponge, right? It's crazy.
Yeah.
NBA.
NBA. I was a Nets fan. I don't really root for anybody anymore ever since they left New Jersey, but I am a big fan. I mean, when I was in college, my roommates and I at Temple University, we would go to some 76ers games, some great 76ers Heat games that, when it was LeBron and Dwayne Wade and I'm forgetting the last guy, Chris
Bosh.
Chris Bosh, thank you, Chris Bosh. So I really don't have a NBA team anymore because of the Nets. I can't root for them because they're in Brooklyn. So I just, but who knows? The 76ers, I don't know if it's a head fake, but I hear it might be for them to come over to Camden. So we'll see.
Yeah, actually, you know what, Mayor? I'm glad you brought that up. And real quick, again, as mayor, as elected official, when we're hearing these whispers, right? And it seems like Phil Murphy loves giving, tax giveaways to billionaires sometimes. It's funny about someone like him who denounces billionaires. He's a billionaire himself. But the point is, obviously, the Sixers do have a practice facility in Camden. There's a lot of whispers about having a new arena built right on the riverfront, basically looking across the Walt Whitman Bridge to, in an attempt to bring the Sixers to Camden, New Jersey. Are you a fan of that? I mean, obviously, as a mayor and elected official, we're hearing some of the grumblings about what it would take to get the Sixers over here. When you hear these tax abatements and these giveaways, I mean, is that a concern for you when you hear this sort of rhetoric?
It is, in the sense that, there are certain incentives that obviously I'm in favor of. I'm in favor of the film tax credit. I think that has done a lot of good things for municipalities like mine. I've had more movies filmed. Happy Gilmore 2 is about to be filmed here next week with Netflix. So I do think that there is some inherent good in certain tax breaks and tax incentives. However, my position on that is, when you're creating jobs and when you're retaining jobs, if New Jersey fixed its property tax problem and its high cost of living, we wouldn't need these incentives to keep these companies here. But the reality is New Jersey is not a competitive state when it comes to business, and we have to be able to retain these businesses somehow. So in terms of the 76ers, I'm not as big of a fan of that, because these jobs are not going to be permanent jobs. They are going to be temporary jobs. And we've seen what some of the tax incentives have done for Camden and the city of Camden. And obviously there's a big debate rolling on about that now. But the issue comes when you're saving those big companies that are employing hundreds, if not thousands of employees, and creating those temporary construction jobs as they build those facilities. That's way different than creating an arena that there's no special incentive for the city of Camden to want the Sixers. So you have to be careful when you start throwing around those incentives like that, because then once you open that purse, where do you stop? And I'd rather fix the issues of the state of New Jersey, fix those property tax issues, fix the competitive edge that we have absolutely lost and obliterated, and let's bring that back. And then these incentives are not as critical to the state of New Jersey and to the businesses that require them to stay here.
I agree with you, Mayor. Again, it'll be interesting to see what happens. And I think, isn't there a law that if a team does relocate to New Jersey, they have to be called the New Jersey 76ers, which, I don't know, to me, that just doesn't sound right.
Yeah, well, that is a little weird, but the New York Football Giants and those New York Jets, well, everybody knows that story, that they're never, never even close really to playing a down in New York City, New York State, New York City
for a very long time.
And here we are. So
some 30, 40 years later, and it seems like they're very happy in the swamps there in East Rutherford, New Jersey, being called the New York Football Giants and the New York Jets. Giants embarrassed themselves yesterday. We'll see if the Jets do that tonight. Real quick, as we finish the lightning round, Marvel Comics or DC Comics?
So I'm going to go probably DC.
Okay.
A little bit, out of the way, but I guess that would be my pick there.
Favorite DC comic character?
I don't really have one. Probably I lost touch so long ago with comics and that genre of
or movies in general. Or movies in general, yeah, DC movies in general, for example.
Well, I'll tell you, I have rekindled a lot of some of the other movies that I've just the other day, a movie that I feel like it's not a comic movie, but a movie that I feel like I've seen more times than any other, and that is Jaws was recently on, and obviously not a comic, but certainly a book that I think everybody should read, because it was based in part on activities that occurred right here in the Bayshore region of New Jersey in Matawan. So too close to home, too close to shore rather,
Sure.
is a big read for everybody to pick up.
Actually, you know what? Even book suggestions, folks. That's what Tony Perry does. He does it all. He gives you book suggestions and everything. Mayor, and this is the last one of the lightning round, and this might get you in trouble, but I got to ask. Best restaurant to eat in Middletown?
Well, are you classifying it down to steakhouse versus pork roll, egg, and cheese? What are you classifying it down to?
Well, you know what? Let's break it down a little bit more. Best deli, best restaurant in Middletown.
Okay, so best deli, head over to Slater's for their pork roll, egg, and cheese. Best restaurant in Middletown. I just had some of the crew over at Gabriella's Steakhouse. So if you're in for a steak, that's where I would go.
Okay. Now that I remember it, because obviously you're in Monmouth County, interesting op-ed on the website of New Jersey 101.5 FM about, listen, I think maybe it's time to get rid of beach badges in 2025. Yes or no?
We don't have all of our beaches in Middletown are free. So all mine are free. There are no beach badges for any of our beaches. So it'll get me in trouble from some of my fellow Monmouth County mayors to say get rid of them. But as so long as those dollars are being utilized to preserve and promote that tourism, businesses in and around those areas all rely on that summer traffic. And if they're not getting it, then it only hurts putting food on the table for those employees that work there. So I'd probably say, so long as that the funds are being used to continue to promote that tourism, it's probably a good idea to keep them for the time being.
Fair enough, Mayor. What can we look forward to later in the fall and going into 2025? Some great events coming up in the town of Middletown.
Definitely. Well, we got Middletown Day coming up, obviously, September 28th. And then on September 29th, we have my annual 5K, which is benefiting 180 Turning Lives Around, a women's domestic violence shelter here in Monmouth County that does unbelievable work, run by a great organization. And this Saturday is a big one. The USS New Jersey, the Navy's newest submarine, a Virginia-class submarine with 137 souls on board fighting for our freedom, will be commissioned right here in Middletown at Naval Weapons Station Earl. So that's obviously an important one. But we have some very, very important announcements that are going to be coming out very soon. Some great visitors that are going to be coming from overseas to talk about peace and security throughout the world, and especially with our friends in Israel. So we have, and then hopefully on November 5th, I'll be able to celebrate a victory on election night. So that'll be a big one for me.
Mayor, I might have to make a trip down to Middletown some point after you're victorious in November, and hopefully we'll have a lot to celebrate your reelection and hopefully the election of the 47th president, Donald Trump, coming up on November the 5th. I really hope so. I'll certainly be in touch with you, and certainly I want to thank you for coming on tonight. You're a gentleman. Again, I've been looking at your record. You've done a wonderful job in Middletown, and certainly I think the voters have an easy choice coming up in 57 days in that great township in Monmouth County. I want to thank you for your time. I know you're a big fan of the show, and I appreciate you being a gentleman with campaign season, obviously busy as you are, taking the time to come on the show here. I'll give you the last word here tonight on Real Talk.
Hey, listen, we live in a great state and we live in a great country. We can make it better. We just need to get those leaders that are willing to make those hard choices and do what's necessary for the people of our great state. And I'm a New Jersey born and bred. I love this state and I never want to leave it. And my 3 kids are going to grow up in this state as well. So let's make it prosperous for all. Let's make it great for all. And let's make it one that can become the envy of our country. We live in a great country. Let's make a great state.
Well said, Mayor. Any websites? I know obviously the township website is different than a campaign website, but sure, any websites our viewers should be made aware of?
Perryformiddletown.com. If you're willing to come out and support us, certainly appreciate that. Any residents, happy to drop off a campaign sign and talk to me about the most important issues you're facing here in town. And then all my social media is at Tony Perry NJ. So it's easy enough.
Fair enough. And listen, the next time the Cowboys and Seahawks have a game, and we have to have a little
do
here. Let's do that. Folks, he is Tony Perry, the Honorable Mayor of Middletown, New Jersey. Again, check out all the great resources at the township website, middletownNJ.org. Mayor, have a great rest of your week. Again, obviously, enjoy the NFL season. Certainly, best of luck to you in your campaign and your reelection. I got no doubt that the residents of Middletown are going to make the right choice on November the 5th. God bless you, sir. Appreciate being a fan of Jersey First TV. And we'll talk to you soon here on Real Talk with Fernando Uribe. Thank you, Mayor.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Folks, great stuff there with the mayor of Middletown, New Jersey. Again, a guy who's busy, he's running for re-election, running a town, obviously great council members and certainly great municipal employees there in the township of Middletown. Again, shout out to the police, fire, and EMTs there, and obviously all the great employees in the town of Middletown that help make it one of the better townships to live in here in the state of New Jersey. Folks, again, if you just joined us, it's 10 minutes past the hour here, 7 o'clock, as they say here on Real Talk. Again, folks, if you just joined us, don't go anywhere. Like, comment, and share. Let everyone know how much you enjoy Real Talk with Fernando Uribe right here on Jersey First TV. And folks, we all know what time it is. Yes, it's what you've been waiting for. It's time for final thoughts. And folks, obviously a lot to unpackage here tonight, but let me start off with, when we think about the excellence in journalism, when we think about something that really, really matters to me. And over the weekend, I had the privilege of attending a memorial service at the First Congregational Church in Montclair, New Jersey, for the memorial service of Michael Aaron, who tragically passed away a few weeks ago. And for any of you that watched my episode in August, shortly after his passing, you know what Michael Aaron means to me. I was able to sit there, many luminaries in attendance, obviously wonderful speeches, obviously wonderful dedications by his three daughters. And I'll tell you, folks, there wasn't one dry eye in the house listening to Michael Aaron's amazing daughters. Talk about the life of Michael Aaron, that he was a soccer fan, he was a wonderful dad and a grandfather, but more importantly, folks, he was inspiration for all of us that do journalism for a living. And I had the privilege once again of meeting Michael Aaron in 2018 when I was invited to Reporters Roundtable at the Gateway Center in downtown Newark, in a show that he hosted for many, many years, going back from New Jersey News, obviously to NJPBS to NJ Spotlight News. And I had the privilege of meeting Michael once again in the green room, and then obviously in the makeup room as I was having makeup put on by the makeup artist right before we went on the set. And he came over like I was a guy he knew. And, when I saw Michael Aaron for the first time, I mean, like anybody else, when you meet your heroes, you're always a little hesitant, you're always a little nervous, but I wasn't. And Michael made me feel right at home in the studio. And he came up to me, shook my hand. He was like, "Hey, young man, how are you? Great show you have. I've been checking out what you do. Keep up the good work. Keep up that hustle, and you'll keep going far." And when I heard Michael say that to me, that stuck with me. And folks, the reason I work so hard every single week here on Real Talk, since it launched on June the 1st in 2020, was because of those great words by Michael Aaron. And I had the privilege to be on Reporters Roundtable on multiple occasions and talking about New Jersey politics, and just sitting in the same studio as Michael Aaron was a privilege. And sitting there Saturday afternoon at the First Congregational Church in Montclair was surreal, because I didn't want to believe that Michael Aaron was gone, a guy that influenced so many of us in the field of journalism, a man who really, again, didn't show favoritism, a guy who was respected, a guy who, again, if you ever caught the segment on YouTube, I mean, again, in the summer of 1996, going up to then President Bill Clinton and just kind of asking him questions. And he stood his ground. And even with President Clinton sort of screaming at him, Michael never wavered. And Michael stood his ground, and Michael stood tall. And it's that sort of poise under pressure that you always appreciate about Michael Aaron. And as I sat there listening to all these testimonials, seeing all of these great pictures and memories, and looking at not just the program for the memorial service, but looking at one of the, I guess, souvenirs or collectibles that they left there, obviously a reporter's notebook in memory of Michael Aaron. Like, I'm never going to touch that book, but I'll always remember what it represents. And that's the greatness of Michael Aaron. And once again, when we talk about the Mount Rushmore of journalism in New Jersey, folks, I don't think it really, he doesn't share with anybody. He sits on Mount Rushmore all by himself. And I'm grateful to have met Michael Aaron. I'm grateful to have interviewed Michael Aaron. He was on my podcast some years ago, and we had great conversations about politics and his background. And I'm forever grateful to Michael Aaron for his confidence in me, for his support of my brand of journalism, and just telling me, "Hey, kid, it was funny telling me, I mean, obviously a guy in his 40s, and calling me a kid." I was just like, I just sort of felt, I don't know, it was one of those like humbling moments for me. But when he just said to me, "Hey, kid, keep up the good work, keep up that hustle, keep doing what you're doing. You're going to go far." I mean, folks, if that doesn't motivate you, I don't know what will. So the reason that I work hard for you every single week here, the reason I don't take off, the reason I don't take off summers like some journalists and just sit around, do nothing. No, folks, we're always working on this show. And again, the reason I work so hard, and I'll continue to work hard, is in the memory of Michael Aaron. A great man, a great journalist, a great dad, but just a great person overall. If you ever had the chance to meet Michael Aaron, trust me, you're better off for it. So once again, my condolences and prayers to his family, to not even arguably to definitely the greatest journalist in New Jersey media history. And that was indeed Michael Aaron. Rest, Michael. You left an impression and an impact on all of us. Again, you'll forever be the greatest journalist. And folks, from talking about the greatest journalists, well, folks, let's talk about perhaps one of the most garbage journalists in New Jersey, and that's Tom Moran. And folks, Tom Moran, of course, and when we think about Tom Moran, I mean, he's really sort of a symptom of a bigger problem, right, in New Jersey media, because it's not just Tom Moran who's a garbage journalist, but I mean, he has a lot of competition in New Jersey, right? Oh, you don't think so? Obviously, we look at Tom Moran along with the Lollipop Guild there in New Jersey media. Again, there's no shortage of clowns in New Jersey media. Obviously, Matt Friedman, Jay Lassiter, Max Pizarro, Alan Steinberg, Bob Hennelly, Terrence McDonald, David Cruz. I mean, folks, the list goes on and on. I mean, there's no shortage of bad journalists. Charles Stile. Obviously, there's no shortage of bad journalists in New Jersey. But what makes Tom Moran even more insufferable is not just the fact that he's an outright propagandist, but I mean, again, it's very convenient what battles Tom Moran likes to pick, right? And let's go to one of his latest columns last week, where Tom Moran talks about Liz Cheney just schooled Chris Christie on political courage, which I think is really, really funny. Now, I'm not going to read you the column itself. I mean, obviously, got some feedback. And one of my new segments I'm going to be doing, folks, on this brand of exceptional journalism, known as Real Talk with Fernando Uribe, is not just doing the show every Monday, but also doing quick commentaries on Twitter. And again, I'm very thankful to all the great traffic, obviously great live traffic right now here on the show, and certainly great traffic on my Twitter when we go live every Monday night, but also on my commentary. And actually, what I'm looking to do on a more regular basis now is give you special commentaries, not very long, maybe 2-3 minutes the most, about what bothers me in New Jersey journalism. And of course, after I read this poor excuse for a comment, again, and I'm looking at this and I'm just like, my God, I mean, it's bad enough to look at Liz Cheney on any screen, but to glorify Liz Cheney, I think is kind of interesting. And let me show you what I published, not just on Tom Moran's Twitter page, but my response to Tom Moran on my own Twitter page. Check this out, folks. I think it really gives you a concise understanding about why Tom Moran is so disingenuous. And let's be honest, why Tom Moran is so dishonest. Well, folks, just when you think Tommy Boy Tom Moran can't have a worse take, he manages to outdo himself. And certainly today's column, well, really, it's kind of just a manifestation of propaganda. Let's be honest. That's what passes for journalism on NJ.com and the Star Ledger lately. But he would have you believe that Lynn Cheney is the symbol of political courage, right? And it's interesting because, it's only 20 years ago, and I get it, in Tommy's advanced age, maybe, he doesn't recall, but for some of us, without having to Google it, 20 years ago during the 2004 presidential election, I'm fairly certain that Tommy was very harsh on her dad, Dick, and George W. Bush, because many on the left were, right? Wasn't the talking point that, these two lied us into a war and that they're war criminals, and what have we come to learn about Dick Cheney and George Bush since then? Yeah. So the idea of Tommy being all sanctimonious and putting Lynn Cheney on some sort of pedestal, folks, is laughable. It's laughable. And what's even more laughable is this idea that Tom Moran would want you to believe that somehow Kamala Harris, the most unpopular vice president in recent history, is now a media darling. And that somehow Tommy Boy would like you to forget that when she's parading around during campaign stops saying, you know what, on day one, I'm going to fix what's wrong. Wait a minute. I thought there was nothing wrong. I thought she and Joe Biden as an administration were doing great. Wasn't this like the greatest economy in recent times, right? And that's not the case. But Tommy Boy would rather lie to you blatantly and tell you that when we all know that inflation is still a problem, when everyday Americans are struggling to decide whether they should pay their rent, their utilities, their car payments, or their car insurance, or even buy groceries in this supposed wonderful economy. So what exactly is Kamala Harris going to fix on day one? I thought there was nothing to fix. I thought everything's great, right? Aside from lying to us for 3.5 years that Joe Biden cognitively was all there, and we all know that wasn't the case. We saw that in the debate. We've seen it with plenty of footage over time. We just go on YouTube and look it up. But once again, the low-T soy boy, known as Tommy Boy, Tom Moran, would rather lie to you. And he's doing that in this column. So, Tom, you should be ashamed of yourself. And as I say on my show all the time, then again, you have to have shame to begin with when you know you don't have any. Well, folks, for more interesting takes and more insightful commentary like this, you can always check out Real Talk via Jersey First TV. You can go to facebook.com/Fernando Uribe Media/videos or the Jersey First YouTube page. Once again, if you want real journalism and insightful analysis and thoughtful commentary, folks, why are you relying on NJ.com and the Star Ledger? You can rely on Real Talk with Fernando Uribe. All right, Tommy, do better, please. I mean, I know in your advanced stage, you're kind of like near the finish line, but my God, dude, do better. I mean, it's embarrassing, these takes you have. My God. Oh, I just realized, man, I am handsome. Oh, my goodness. What a handsome fellow right there, isn't he? But folks, what's really, really interesting in all seriousness, though, is the traffic on that video alone, all organically, is easily over 1,000 views already. So you can see that people are gravitating towards these commentaries because it's really exposing how dishonest Tom Moran is. Now, again, let me unpackage it again. I don't want to be repetitious, and I understand that Tom Moran in his advanced age, when you're 87, 88 years old, like Tom Moran is, I get it, cognitively, you're not there. And I get it, Tom, hopefully you remember what Starbucks to go to when you get your latest cappuccino, right? I get it, and folks, again, when we look at low testosterone soy boys like Tom Moran, what bothers me the most is how disingenuous he is during this election cycle. As I just published in the special commentary, let's remind you again, 20 years ago, during the 2004 presidential election, what were we hearing from those on the left? And I'm pretty sure, folks, if we Google it, we could find Tom Moran's commentary about George W. Bush and Dick Cheney, right? And what's been the rhetoric about those two for the last 20 years by those on the left? I'm sure like those that include Tom Moran. Oh, that George W. Bush and Dick Cheney are war criminals, right? Is that all we've been hearing for 20 years, right? When we've all learned now that George Bush and Dick Cheney lied us into a war, that misled us into a war, that killed and injured hundreds of thousands of American men and women serving in our armed forces. And for decades, George W. Bush and Dick Cheney have been vilified by the left and by establishment media in New Jersey, and of course, establishment media nationally. But Tom Moran would like you to believe that Miss Photogenic over here, Liz Cheney, is someone we should admire for her political courage, right? Oh, should we also admire the political courage of her dad, Dick Cheney? Folks, did anybody like Dick 20 years ago? Did anyone like Dick 10 years ago? Did anyone like Dick 5 years ago? Right? A guy who, let's be honest, has had friends get rich off of wars, right? Who's clearly probably one of the most disliked Republicans in modern history, but somehow an endorsement by Liz Cheney, a failed candidate for the House of Representatives, and her father, Dick Cheney, right? Somehow that's going to move the needle for Kamala Harris. Right? Somehow that is going to make us look at Tom Moran, and take him seriously. Folks, does anyone take Tom Moran seriously? Spoiler alert, the answer is no. Folks, in a time when we have record inflation, interest rates are still suffocating Americans, New Jerseyans are deciding where to pay their rent, car payments, car insurance, grocery bills, how to fill up their gas tanks, right? Whether or not to travel, right? But again, Tom Moran would rather make you believe that Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney's endorsements make a difference. They don't. And of course, we all know that Tom Moran, very much like the rest of the Lollipop Guild in New Jersey media, right, have varying degrees of Trump derangement syndrome. We all know who they are. Remember, I talk about them quite often. Let's see. folks, that never gets old. That never gets old, seeing the Lollipop Guild of establishment media in New Jersey. But again, folks, the varying degrees of Trump derangement syndrome really is unique here. But Tommy Boy demonstrates it the worst, because Tom Moran doesn't even care if he's lying to you, because that's what he does. And I would get it, at Tom Moran's advanced age, at this stage of his life, you would think that Tom Moran, as he's getting to the finish line of life, would want to lead a more honorable life and not lie to you. But Tom Moran doesn't care. Tom Moran's too comfortable making six figures from the Star Ledger and NJ.com. Tom Moran's employers keep lying to you and send you emails and say, yes, for only $1 a month, invest in news you can believe in. Really? Star Ledger and NJ.com? Folks, I would rather drink my own urine after a night out of drinking than believe anything Tom Moran and the Star Ledger and NJ.com put out there. Tom Moran would have you believe that the 45th president is a threat to democracy, right? Isn't that what Dick Cheney, Liz's father, and George W. Bush were? Threats to democracy? But not a peep from Tom Moran, right? When the real threats to democracy reside right now at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, where the president of the United States has spent 40% of his presidency on vacation, that has weaponized the Department of Justice to go after his political opponents. Well, we're seeing that all these witch hunt investigations and trials against the 45th president are amounting to nothing. Folks, Tom Moran would want you to believe that somehow Kamala Harris, the most unpopular vice president in modern history, is somehow qualified to be president. I can't wait for tomorrow night. She's going to struggle in that debate. She's going to get smoked, and she has no to blame for herself. Tom Moran would want you to believe that Donald Trump is a true threat to democracy. No, folks, it's the 46th president of the United States and his vice president. Those are the threats of democracy. But folks, again, Tom Moran would want you to believe otherwise. And let's be fair, Tom Moran should be ashamed of himself. But as I keep saying on this program, just like him and the rest of the Lollipop Guild in New Jersey media, that will require all of you to have shame. And we all know that you don't have any shame to begin with. It's a shame, folks, as you see the passing of the greatest journalist, Michael Aaron, and someone we should always admire. Folks, let's be honest. We're going all the way down into the gutter to look at the worst journalist. Let's be fair. That award is always going to go to Tom Moran. And those are my final thoughts. Folks, before we call it a night here on the program, once again, I want to thank Mayor Tony Perry. And of course, the reason that the show continues to do well is because of all of you. You'll be happy to know that in August, over 67,000 organic views for Real Talk via Jersey First TV. Folks, nothing boosted. Okay. No paid ads. Okay. Everything's organic here. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. Maybe not so much on YouTube, because, YouTube censors conservatives all the time. But by and large, the traffic has been great. It's been great for 2024. It's been great going back to 2023. Folks, it's because people like you at home have a decision to make. And you trust Jersey First TV. And you trust Real Talk. So for all the haters out there, we all know who they are. The activists, some retired police officers in Union City that have nothing to do with their time. Guys that probably never passed a promotional exam. Wannabe journalists, instigators, agitators, you name it. When they're trying to think of ways to get good traffic, folks, we're just good traffic. We're not the same. So for all the haters out there, you might want to go to Walgreens or CVS. I know they're still open. You might want to get some ointment for that burn. Because let's be honest, when it comes to real traffic, it's always here on Real Talk. Thank you, everybody, for once again believing in this program and believing for everything I do here with Jersey First TV. And of course, all the great staff that we have at Jersey First. Of course, I can't thank you enough. And folks, keep the comments coming. Keep the views coming. We're going strong in September. Let's finish out 2024 on a positive note. And that's our show for this week, folks. Once again, I want to thank Middletown Mayor Tony Perry for an exceptional conversation, very illuminating, and certainly one of the better townships to live in down the Jersey Shore in Monmouth County for sure. I want to thank him for his time. Folks, if you haven't done so already, don't forget to like Real Talk with Fernando Uribe on Facebook, of course. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and certainly on YouTube. Like, comment, and share, and subscribe to Jersey First on YouTube. We appreciate it because, again, there's so many options you have. I appreciate you believing in Real Talk via Jersey First TV. And, of course, wherever you get your podcasts on Spotify or SoundCloud, download it, folks, and take Jersey First TV with you, again, as we enter the autumn months. And, of course, you'll be going apple picking, pumpkin picking, enjoying the NFL, folks. Again, how about them first place 1-0 Dallas Cowboys winning in Cleveland? I feel sorry for the Saints because they come marching in this Sunday into Dallas. May not go very well for that team from New Orleans. We'll find out this Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So again, folks, enjoy the great weather. Obviously, it's the fall, a little chilly, but it's good. You can wear a hoodie. You're not really sweating. You're not really suffering from heat exhaustion, folks. It's that great time of year in September, October, as they say. Of course, folks, you're on your, you're on your phone, you're on your tablet, you're on your PC or Mac. Take Jersey First TV with you anywhere at any time. And of course, folks, I cannot say enough what a privilege it is to be on the dream team of journalism right here in the Garden State. It's always Jersey First TV. Brand new episodes of the Nader Narrative premiere every Thursday, folks. Check your local listings, of course, when they premiere. Of course, hosted by the outstanding Elizabeth Nader. And brand new episodes of Bridging the Gap, hosted by AJ Malillo and Stephen Rumbola, premiere every Thursday. And of course, brand new episodes of Real Talk premiere every Monday night right here, folks. Check your local listings, of course. We appreciate your support every single week here on Jersey First TV. Folks, I can't say enough. If it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always Real Talk right here with Jersey First TV. I am New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist, top Latino, as voted on by the Latino Spirit Online magazine, along with the United States Latino Affairs Initiative, and certainly now more than ever, I'll continue to be the weapon of mass disruption in Garden State media because my level of honesty is truly necessary in this era of journalistic discipline. That's right, folks. It's me, Fernando Uribe, the most handsome face that runs the place. That's right. Thank you so much for tuning in, folks. Please look after your elderly neighbors. Again, please drive carefully and safely as kids are back in school. Of course, enjoy the NFL. Let's go Cowboys. Folks, let's make sure. Let's hope. Well, I don't even have to hope. We know Donald Trump's going to win that debate tomorrow. And in 57 days, he'll be the 47th president. Folks, let's get out there and vote. Early voting starts soon. Ballots are being mailed out. Folks, don't leave anything to chance. Let's get Donald Trump across the finish line and help make him the 47th president. Folks, that's right. It's me, Fernando Uribe, saying so long. Always remember, if you can't be good, be bad, baby. Thank you so much for stopping by, folks. And of course, hey, again, I love you all for supporting this program. Of course, for all the haters, you'll still keep tuning in because you can't help yourselves. Have a great rest of your week, folks. And always remember, stay classy, everyone.